Welcome, everyone. I'm really excited tonight to have Dan Perttu here. I heard about him through Jeffrey Beagle, who you may remember I interviewed a while back, and he's an amazing composer, and I just want to share with you some of his wonderful music tonight. We're going to play most of his pieces in their entirety, so it's going to be like sitting at a concert of his and having him give us insight into his music as we go. So I think that's a great privilege. Thank you, Dan, for joining us tonight. I'm going to just read a little bit of your bio because I think it's pretty amazing. This is from Dan's website, danielperttu.com. Music has always been a kind of magic for me, a portal to other realms. When I was young, I was inspired by fantasy novels such as The Lord of the Rings, and I'm still drawn to myths and legends. I've written works on themes ranging from the planets, the sorcery of Merlin, and the Callanish Stone Circle to the Torngat Mountains. My aim is to write music that invites audiences into other worlds so they can rediscover their own sense of wonder. I just love that, Dan. Then I'm going to read this bottom end of your, which I found fascinating. Although Dan always loved to compose, he was resistant to pursue a composition as a career when he was young. That's amazing. As an undergraduate student, he hedged his bets by studying music and English. He also took numerous courses in psychology and neuroscience and even considered a career in law. When he was awarded a Jacob K. Javits Fellowship to study music in graduate school, he threw caution to the wind and decided to go all in. It worked. Upon graduating with his degree, his doctorate in composition, he took a position as a music professor at the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, and now teaches at Westminster College, where he is serving again as the chair of the School of Music, having previously been in that role for 2 terms from 2014 through 2022. He lives with his wife and 2 amazing daughters in Neshannock, Pennsylvania. I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Or is it Neshannock? Is that right?
Yeah.
Neshannock. Okay. Well, thank you, Dan. Welcome, and thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'd love to ask you, that's quite insightful to hear that you weren't exactly sure. And by the way, there are people that are born knowing they're going to be composers. There are other people that don't become composers until they're in their 40s. And it's interesting that you actually were kind of on the fence and hedged your bets. I love that story. And then decided to go all in. So the Jacob Javits Award, I assume that's something you have to apply for, or is that how that works? So you,
Yeah, it no longer exists, but back in the time when it was available, it was something I applied for at the end of my undergraduate career. And
yeah.
yeah, so it ended up working out. And yeah, I mean, I had always loved composing, but it's a complicated field, and
Yes.
I had other interests too. So it was really hard to make up my mind when I was, in my late teens and early 20s.
Yeah. So if the Jacob Javits deal did not go through, do you think that would have bifurcated your career? You would have gone elsewhere, do you think? Or what are your thoughts?
I'm not sure at
Yeah,
this
that was a
same
seminal
time.
moment. Yeah.
Oh, it
Wow.
certainly was, yeah.
Wow. Wow. Now, when did you grow up in a musical family?
Um, Sort of, to the extent that my I have an aunt who's a music teacher. She's retired now.
Hmm.
And my my mom and my parents in general always loved music. My mom particularly loved classical music.
Yeah.
And so I heard a lot of it that way and was also fortunate to be in the Cleveland area. So grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, and
Hmm.
we had fairly easy access to the Cleveland Orchestra,
Hmm.
and had gone to concerts when I was a kid. And then also I had been to some concerts through the schools. They bussed us in and did that. And then I'd learned about the Cleveland Orchestra Youth Orchestra and auditioned for that on bassoon and got in. So
Ah.
there was a lot of that exposure there when I was young.
Yeah. So being in an orchestra, I had the similar experience on the violin. I can appreciate that. What's your first memory as a child of music? I mean, was there a seminal moment where you heard something and thought, "Wow, that's beautiful"? Maybe did they take you at a concert very young? I'm asking you multiple questions here. So,
Sure, yeah. I did go to concerts when I was quite young,
mm,
and also there's a Blossom Music Festival, so there are outdoor concerts too, which I
yeah.
imagine, it's easier to have a little kid at. But I also became I became enamored with the Peer Gynt Suite. My
Yes.
and other romantic music, and also some and Mozart and some Vivaldi. My mom
Mm,
had LPs of all
yeah.
those things, and
Hmm.
then I ended up getting my own. personal little record player back in the 80s, this little blue thing, and would play things like Peter and the Wolf on it.
Ah, yes.
Um,
Yeah.
So I had that kind of exposure, and I also started piano. There was a piano in the house, and I started
Mm.
piano when I was 5 because I was
Ah,
very interested in it, and I loved just playing at it. And then I took lessons at 5, and was again was very much into the music I heard from my mom's LP set. And
mm.
so then I ended up wanting to get a lot of my own. First with it evolved to tapes and then to CDs. And of course,
Sure.
CDs are so much better. And
Mm.
with the advent of the comeback of LPs, I have to wonder, I mean, more power to people who like them, but having been someone who experienced LPs when they were originally the way they were, I'm like, why
Mm.
would anyone ever go back? But that's just
Yeah. I guess they claim the sound is even better, but I don't know.
I don't
Maybe
know about
maybe with the first time you play it, but after a while it gets worn out, I would think.
that.
Yeah, so that's really quite fascinating. Now, so um, how far did you get on the piano? Did you start playing some pretty serious stuff eventually? And
I did. Yeah. I continued all throughout college and
mm.
actually I still play as a professor.
Oh yeah.
I played a significant amount of Chopin,
Mm.
some Rachmaninoff, the Rachmaninoff G minor prelude, the Chopin Fantasy Impromptu.
Oh yeah.
So I really Brahms Rhapsodies, I absolutely love those, or the late Brahms pieces. Uh,
Sure.
I love
A
it.
fantasy impromptu. Sorry to interrupt you. That's not an easy piece. That gets pretty crazy. Yeah.
Although that one I found to be easier than the C minor Revolutionary Etude, which was just
Yes.
all this left hand stuff is
Left
just
hand stuff is brutal. I'm trying to learn Opus 10 number one and then found out online it's the hardest etude ever. I'm thinking maybe I won't ever actually finish that one. But so then when did you start? How did you get into the bassoon? That's a very different thing, obviously.
yeah, good question. So um, when I was in elementary school, we had a trumpet in the family. My great grandpa played the
Mm.
trumpet,
Oh.
and so I thought, okay, well, I'll play that in band. We have
Mm.
one, and I liked trumpets, and they were nice. Um,
Mm.
one of my regrets is actually that I didn't start on a string instrument. We had a string orchestra in our school, and
Mm.
wish I had played one. But we had the trumpet, so I played it in band. And then when I was listening to Mozart's D minor piano concerto, I heard different passages that featured the bassoon because Mozart was great with the woodwinds,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
and especially in those later piano concertos. And I thought, wow, that's a really neat sounding instrument.
Yeah.
And I got to know it that way. And then I asked my band director about it, and she needed a bassoonist. So, and of course, there were a ton of trumpet players. So I got more opportunities on bassoon, and sort of the rest was history there.
Yeah.
And
So I'm
I
sorry. Did
got
you
it.
also play trumpet then too?
I did a little bit. Yeah,
Yeah.
I sort of fell off, and
Yeah.
bassoon over
Well, the bassoon is kind of like the cello of the wind instruments in a way. So it's a
is.
beautiful sound. Absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. So when
Yeah.
did you start composing?
So I wrote some bad music, music that wasn't very good,
Hmm.
when I was 7 or 8.
Oh
Uh,
wow. Well, you're
so
forgiven at 7.
right. So I was practicing piano, and I did practice. I was pretty good about practicing, but
Mm.
I was more turned on by actually creating the music. Uh,
Mm.
and I remember, I would practice, I would be disciplined about it, and then I'd be like, oh, good, I want to make up my own stuff. And I
Mm.
always had that drive to do that.
Yeah.
Uh, and so I wrote throughout childhood, but I was not trained. And
Mm.
I didn't know that you could actually be trained as a kid in composition. I took music theory with my piano teacher, which, that made sense. But I didn't know that you could actually be trained in composition as a kid. And
Oh, I
no one,
didn't know that either.
yeah, well, it is theoretically possible, but
Yeah.
no one in my family really knew that.
Mm.
All we knew was get lessons on your instrument and play in ensembles. So that's
Right.
basically what I did.
Hmm.
And I didn't pursue composition very much for a while because I was hearing a lot of new music at the time with what was at the Cleveland Orchestra and other orchestras. And
Mm.
it was still a lot of very thorny, modernist, very dissonant music.
Yeah.
And there was part of me, and no offense to the craft involved in that music. I think
Yeah.
there's a lot of amazing compositions in terms of craft, but it
Right.
didn't speak to me.
Right. Yes.
And and when I heard it, I thought, oh my God, do I have to write like that in order to be a living contemporary composer?
Well, by the way, I want to ask you about that because I never took composition in college. Do they, in fact, encourage you to write that way? I mean, is it the kind of thing where if you don't, you're an outcast, or, you know?
That's a very interesting question.
Yeah.
In academic composition in the mid 20th century, yes,
Mm.
there was a fair amount of that. And even when I was going through school, even in graduate school, there were times, not so much from my teachers, but from people I knew, from, trying to get my work performed, etc.,
Right.
where in the late 90s and early 2000s, at that time, still there was a lot of modernism going on.
Yeah.
And, as a composer who is very tonally oriented and myself, and also
Mhm.
very melodically and harmonically driven, I did not fit into that.
Yeah.
Uh, but since then, it's actually swung more in toward new approaches to tonality, I think, in many respects.
Yeah. Excellent. So let's talk about the first piece we're going to play today, To Spring. Tell us a
Yes.
little bit about that, history on that.
So this piece was commissioned by the Lakeland Civic Orchestra, conducted by Matt Saunders, and a friend of mine from doctoral school. But he needed an overture for spring. It was really that simple.
Yeah.
Uh, for it's easy to program, and he just needed that. And he said, "Would you like to write it?" And I said, "Of course." And I found a poem called To Spring by William Blake, a Romantic era poet from England, and was really enamored with it. And it was around the time when my first daughter was born. She was born in
Mm.
2014
Mm.
and was a toddler at the time when I was writing this, baby into a toddler. And then my wife was also pregnant with our second baby. And so it was a time for us that was very, you know, new life, birth, and
Yeah.
centered
Yeah.
around new life. And so I dedicated it to my daughters.
Oh,
And
that's wonderful.
yeah, so it's meant to be a celebration of the season, but it's not just all bees and flowers. It has darker and more contemplative sections too for contrast uh,
Mm.
in it. So
Excellent. Well, and when they get into teenage years, that actually would make a lot of sense. Now,
true.
this is this is one of the longer pieces we're going to play today. It's about 8 minutes, and it's wonderful. So let's, without further ado, let's play To Spring. Wow. I got to
Like,
tell you, with the big fanfare, I get goosebumps. I actually imagine myself playing the violin in this orchestra. It was a lot of fun while I was listening to it. I
mm,
love the fact you start with this low melody, maybe because you have a bassoon training, but it almost sounded to me like it's the winter leaving, and then
mm.
you have this all this interplay with woodwinds and strings at various points that are very classical. Yet at other points, you have very interesting tonalities that are clearly more modern, that are unexpected. And I wonder, how do you think about that? Do you are you consciously going out of the classical structure, or are you just looking for some notes or chords that are different in your mind? Just wondering how you get inspired to do that. Is it even a conscious thing? I don't know, but
Yeah, I it is conscious.
hmm,
But what chord I end up choosing is not always conscious, if you know what I mean. So
yeah,
the intention, there are intentions to lead to something unexpected.
yes,
I deliberately will set up some kind of sequence of fairly expected progressions.
yeah,
And then I love pulling the rug out from under the audience.
yes, yes. And by the way, a very nice way. It's not cacophonic. It's it's really very interesting. Yeah, it's almost seamlessly intertwined. So, even the casual listener won't be like shocked or you know. Uh,
Right. Well, it's always a balance, right? Yeah, because I don't want to just make it completely out of context.
yes.
It has to have I see harmonies very much as colors.
Hmm.
So, I want my music to be vivid in terms of its color palette and
Hmm.
harmonically. And
Right.
so, but you can't have interesting combinations of colors unless you set up something where you expect something at first within a certain range,
Like a
and then
palette,
you have
kind
the
of.
splash. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I also like the fast staccato passages of the violins that set up some high energy, and you can just see the birds flying around and all bugs and everything at the end. It's really very nicely done. Very nicely done. That reminds me, I meant to ask you because I know you love Vivaldi. Have you written a piece for all the seasons besides the spring? Have you done summer, fall, winter?
So I like some Vivaldi. I listened
Okay,
to it as a kid, but yeah,
the four seasons is still in my mind is like wonderful.
it,
So I don't, yeah,
it is. Yeah, it
yeah.
is. It is. It's a wonderful piece. And on that, I am actually planning something October-ish at some point.
Mhm.
Orchestras do a lot of autumnal or Halloween kind of related concerts, and so I'm definitely contemplating something for
Oh,
that.
excellent. Okay,
So
okay.
maybe.
Now this next thing is very different. Tell us about Phoenix.
Yeah, so this piece was written during COVID. It happened, well, it came about originally because of my relationship with Navona Records, which is the publisher of both of these pieces. And after the success of To Spring in terms of the recording, and the fact that I had been getting multiple performances with orchestras, the A&R representatives at Palmer Recordings at Navona Records, sa asked me if I'd be interested in writing a 5-minute piece um, to be recorded by the London Symphony. And
Mm,
I thought, well, yeah,
yes. Let me think about it. Yes.
I'm not going to say no to that. So
Yeah.
I took on the project, and then I was writing it during COVID, and the agreement to have London recorded and stuff was happening before COVID actually started. And then COVID started, and I thought, oh my God, is this ever going to happen? Well,
Mm,
I proceeded with it anyway.
yeah.
And I wanted to write on the theme of the Phoenix because the Firebird is a beautiful piece. I love it by
Yeah.
Stravinsky. One of my favorite works of his. And it is something that it's a piece that is performed very frequently. And I love the myth of the Phoenix. And
Yes.
I thought, how wonderful would it be to have a companion piece for the Firebird?
Yeah.
Interestingly, it's not really been programmed with the Firebird all that much, but whatever.
Oh,
Maybe
that.
someone will.
Anything else you want to add before I play it?
Sure. So yeah, as I was I mean, of course, the legend of the phoenix is about when it ends at the end of its life cycle after 1,000 years. It
Mm,
flies out of paradise and then is reborn um, at the first ray of sun
mm,
of dawn.
mm,
And then it returns to paradise more triumphantly. And of
mm.
course, it's the old, uh, sort of arc of a fallen scenario, a rebirth, etc.
Yeah.
But what I enjoyed about writing it was to capture sort of that the seriousness of the end of the life cycle, the fallen aspects of the world, and then the contemplative uh, re rebirth section, where it sings the beautiful song. The phoenix sings a beautiful song right before the spark ignites it, and the
Mm,
beautiful song happens in the middle with the flute accompanied by the harp and a very celestial kind of combination. And that is no coincidence. That's I always think of Mozart's flute and harp concerto, which I did hear as a kid a lot,
yeah.
as a celestial kind of piece. And
Interesting.
so that is that middle section, and then there is a Bartok Pitts in the strings, and that is the spark. And then we have a somewhat reprise, but it's a transformation of the first section of the material.
Mm,
Much more triumphant feeling. And when
yeah.
I was writing this during COVID, I thought, I really hope there's going to be a rebirth. And thank goodness there was, because, at the time I was kind of despairing. So I think that comes out in it a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I actually had COVID very badly in March of 2020 when I was out of commission for 9 weeks. So I totally am
Oh,
glad that we came out of that.
my goodness.
Yeah. So without further ado, this is Phoenix. a rush. That must have been amazing to have the London Philharmonic do this, the London Symphony Orchestra do this. I want to ask you before I shut this off. I noticed there's a whole bunch of other composers on this particular album.
Mhm.
Um, are they all contemporary? Do you know offhand?
Yes, they're all living.
And do you happen to run into any of them?
I know Mark Del Porto
Uh huh.
specifically.
Yeah.
He and I've been at various conferences and stuff together.
Oh, that's
And
great. Yeah.
Don Boyer, I know him too.
Uh huh. Oh, wonderful. So you guys do get together sometimes and commingle. That's great.
Yeah,
That's wonderful. Great. Okay, good. So let's talk about your next one, which is, I'm not sure I'm saying this correctly, the Store of Trotternish. Did I get that right?
that's right.
What is a
So
store in the first place? I'm not sure what that is.
yeah,
It's
it's
called
well,
STORR. Yeah.
Storr. Yes, this
Yeah.
is on the Isle of Skye in Scotland.
Oh.
So it's this pinnacle of rock. Um,
Hmm.
and the Store of Trotternish in particular, it's a region with a bunch of these rock pinnacles, spires. And the
Hmm.
one that I was thinking of is specifically called the Old Man of Storr. And it's in the Trotternish area on the Isle
Hmm.
of Skye in Scotland. It
Oh.
is geographically and geologically a very interesting, unique place with mountains that rise jaggedly out of the misty ocean.
Hmm.
And so it's a very evocative, very sorry, kind of otherworldly kind of place almost.
Yeah. Now, by the way, are you Scottish background history?
Saw a little bit.
Yeah.
I
Interesting.
have a mixture of Scots Irish in my
Mm.
background. It's hard to
Hmm.
know exactly how much is what. More Irish than Scottish, but some of the Irish are from Northern Ireland, so some of them came from
Yeah.
Scots.
Yeah. I know there's a wonderful song about the Isle, and I'm trying to think, I can't think of the name of it right now, but a friend of mine's 100% Scottish, and she used to play that for me. But yeah, that's interesting. So that's the background on this. And what inspired you to do this specifically?
This was originally a trombone sonata, and
Hmm.
I was writing it for a colleague of mine, and then I rewrote it for bassoon so I could play
Mm.
it.
Ah.
And I was I had been on vacation to Scotland in 2012 with my
Hmm.
wife
Mm.
before we had kids, and she is actually a U.S. national Scottish fiddling champion. In
Oh,
addition,
wow.
yeah, in addition to being a violin and orchestra professor here where I work, uh,
Oh.
and so as she had always wanted to take me to Scotland, and I'd always wanted to go, and so it was when I went, and I was inspired by that place. So
Mm.
I wanted to write a piece.
Wonderful. Nice. I want to ask you, is this in the studio or was this live?
This was in the studio,
Yeah.
and I actually am the bassoonist. So,
I was going to ask that. In fact, I thought maybe you could also be the pianist and do a couple of different takes, but that's not the case. You had a pianist
oh my
play
God.
it.
No, yeah, I had a piano colleague, professor here where I work with, Nancy DeSalvo, who did that.
Uh-huh. Now, I have to admit, if you told me this already, I apologize, but this album says Pinnacle. Does that mean all the other pieces on it are all about mountain heights and reaching high places and all of that, by any
Yeah,
chance?
metaphorically at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Excellent. Before I forget, I do remember when we did a pre-interview that you mentioned there are some pieces you'd love to play, but you don't have the rights to, even though they're your pieces. They were
Yes.
performed recently. They're your most recent pieces, and you can't play them, and that must be so frustrating. But do you want to talk about them a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Um, So I have some recent concertos actually that have been performed by various orchestras, and I have some even upcoming. But one of my recent pieces is a cello concerto. It's called "The Guises of Love," and I would love someday to get that commercially recorded. I have
Hmm.
archival recordings, but it's not the same. And I also have two piano concertos that are completed and have been performed by orchestras. And
Hmm.
one is called A Planet's Odyssey. And
Hmm.
so it's a modern response to Holst's planets, but is not on astrology, but instead on astronomical discoveries associated with the planets.
Huh.
So those are some recent pieces, a viola concerto as well, that and an upcoming violin concerto which has not been premiered yet, but I would love to have commercial recordings of someday.
Yeah, that's great. Well, it sounds like you're very prolific there, my friend. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
I had recorded Melissa Manchester a while back. Of course, she's a different genre, but a lot of people knew her and loved her. And I just heard from Spotify. I was going to have it broadcast on the middle of November, and they said every one of the songs you can't broadcast in the U.S. So just, oh my God. So,
Mm.
it's frustrating because you want to feature the composer's piece. And these are pieces that are, now 30, 40 years old. So anyway, moving on. The next piece is Mountain Twilight, and it's off an album called Foundations. Tell us something about that one.
Yeah, Mountain Twilight was commissioned by a friend of mine who was also the director of the Shenango Valley Chorale at the time, and also had was a collaboration with that and the Greenville Symphony based in Pennsylvania. Uh,
Hmm.
and so it worked out. And then since I knew we had this wonderful collaboration going on, and since I'd been already affiliated with Navona Records, I wanted to make sure there was a recording of it, and we were able to put that together and release it commercially. So I'm very excited about this piece as well.
Excellent. All right, we'll play this now. Mountain Twilight. Truly majestic. Just love that sound. I want to ask you, what kind of advice would you give to composers that are, or if people are thinking of composing orchestral works? Would it make sense to, I mean, I'm thinking you probably want to look at dozens, if not hundreds of scores of, other things you love. And then you'd have to kind of categorize in your mind catalog how, they created these timbres and textures of all these various instruments. You'd have to kind of have a working knowledge of that. Is that the best way to do it? Or I don't want to put words in your mouth. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on how you do it.
Yeah, that's a big part of it, of course. So it is important to have absorbed different orchestrational techniques by doing a lot of listening and actually going to live concerts too,
Mm,
and sitting in orchestras and sitting in audiences, because the acoustical experience of a live concert is going to be still different even from a recording.
yeah,
Uh, so that's a big part of it. And then there's also I mean, the absorption, there's intentional study versus passive absorption, both. So, the intentional versus osmotic approaches, both are important. I have studied a lot of scores just by looking at them, but I've also just done a lot of listening. And
yeah.
my approaches to composition too, of course, are then not just with orchestral music, but in general. It's both a mixture of the cerebral and the intuitive. It's
Mm,
it's always a marriage of the two.
yeah. Do you find yourself ever coming up with things that haven't been done, but I'm saying, I think I'm going to try this and see what happens, kind of thing? Yeah.
Yeah, of course, there's going to be a mixture of that. And then there's
Mm,
going to be sometimes you need to use certain things that have been done enough. It's like speaking a language.
yeah.
Uh, I like, if I'm to write a novel, I like to write in English so that people understand. And so in music, I like to use enough words and syntax and whatever, and metaphorically, that
Yeah.
people understand what I'm intending to do. There can always be a new story. You can always have a new novel, and you don't have to throw English out.
Right, right, right. I like that. That's a good metaphor right there. All right, and now something completely different. This is your piano sonata, um, and this is the third movement, Presto. Give us a little
hmm
background on that before I play it, would you?
Yeah, so I always wanted to write a piano sonata. I wrote it for my colleague again, Nancy DeSalvo, and I always wanted to write something that was um, sort of a moto perpetuo, a 6/8, 9/8 kind of feel
Ah,
that just never stops, and show is highly virtuosic and shows off the pianist's
yeah,
capabilities.
yeah,
So.
excellent. Excellent. Those rhythms are very modern, obviously. That's really nice. I
Yeah,
want to ask you now, is this something that you compose yourself on the piano, I assume, right?
I did,
Yeah.
but I've not played it.
Okay. But
But
you
yeah,
probably could, right? I mean, I
well,
imagine
I would really
you'd have to work at it. Yeah,
I
yeah,
really have to work at that.
yeah.
But that piece was also inspired by my trip to England, where I visited Stonehenge. So that's why it says
Oh,
Stones on the CD.
yeah.
And the opening, the first movement has different Stonehenge related themes, and then those actually come back and are reinterpreted in that last movement. So it's actually a whole arc.
Oh, how did you how did you go about getting a deal with Nevada Records? How does that work?
Yeah, so I met the CEO, Bob Lord of
Mm-hmm.
Nirvana Records, Parma Recordings,
Hmm.
when I was at a professional composers conference
Ah, okay.
in
Yeah.
2009 or 10, somewhere a while ago now. And we happened to meet, we talked. I sent him some samples, and he said, "Yeah, I'd like to work with you."
Wonderful. Oh, that's great. Excellent. So I assume they go out and help promote your music and that sort of thing too. That's wonderful. Excellent. Now we're not going to play all of this next piece. It goes on for almost 15 minutes, but we're going to play Gloman. And you're the second composer to use that word, and I did not know what that word meant at first. So is it a common word in Scotland or something, or where is that from?
Yeah, I think there's certainly there, and I mean it refers to that twilight time,
Yeah,
and yeah, it's a very for me a very evocative sort of liminal time between day and
yeah.
night, and
That's a
so
great word, liminal. Yeah, yeah. And you want to give us any more background on your thoughts on it before we play it?
yeah, so this piece was written for a former colleague of mine at the University of Louisiana, flutist, flute professor there who's now retired,
Mm-hmm.
Andrea Lowy, and her colleague, our colleague, a piano colleague, Yuling Huang Davy, and it was meant simply to showcase the sort of nightingale bird-like qualities of the flute, particularly at those twilight times when you might be hearing more of the night birds settle in.
Yeah, wonderful. You're starting in the middle of it. That's wonderful. You can practically see the sun setting. It's just because,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's hard to tell when the flute ends. It's almost like a hearing test. When does it actually go to zero?
Yeah. No, it's wonderful. I love the way
My
she
God,
performed.
that is beautiful. Well, this has been a wonderful hour, Dan. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed it, and I am glad you didn't become a psychologist or a lawyer. I just think you're too creative for those paths in your life. Maybe a novelist you would have been great, but I think this is wonderful. You're clearly creative, and you're sharing these gifts with the world. So, very wonderful to hear all this. Thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I loved being able to talk with you.
Sure, our pleasure.